Good morning, everybody. The time is 10:01. I'll call the December 12th, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. We are joined today by our Vice Chair Bailey. Good morning, Ms. Bailey.
Good morning.
We have Commissioner Washington
Good morning.
and Commissioner Giraldo.
Good morning, everyone.
I don't
I
think we
see
have
our, I
Commissioner
see
Dorner.
our illustrious council there as well.
We do. Oh, there we go. There's Commissioner Dorner. And I'm Chair Shapiro. We have all five of our members here. Want to please note for everybody that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission materials and exhibits was 12 noon on the Tuesday before this planning board meeting. Registered speakers may join the meeting with a link provided in the email provided by the planning board office, or you can listen by phone by utilizing the call-in number provided in the email. And of course, anyone may tune in to watch our meeting via live stream. If you wish to speak or become a person of record, you can use our online web form, and you'll see that referenced on the screen before you. In addition to our commissioners, we are joined by our principal counsel, David Warner. We also have, excuse me, Jessica Jones, our planning board administrator, Joe Parsons, our senior technical hearing writer, and Sherry Connor, our acting development review division chief. And thanks, as always, to Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Carl for helping us with technology behind the scenes. So moving over the agenda, we are going to follow the agenda as described. Item 5 has been removed from the agenda. We're going to start with item 1. We have some resolutions of appreciation. We actually have 3 folks who are retiring after many years of service with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Start with Mr. Buck, Nathaniel Buck, a Parks and General Maintenance lead, retiring from the commission as of the end of this month, with 25 years of service. He's held multiple roles: park general maintenance worker 3, equipment operator, park maintenance 2. He earned a groundskeeper of the year award, and he has received recognition for various items, including his work on our irrigation systems and our gold medal celebrations, and contributing to the grand opening of the Southern Regional Technology and Recreation Complex. Next, we have Mr. Pruitt, Michael Pruitt, a senior carpenter who is retiring after 29 years of service. He has been responsible for working with wood to build and repair structures throughout the county, and he's trained many other carpenters through his years. He received all sorts of accolades and awards. Just to name a few, for his work at PRA, Parks and Rec Administration Building, and rebuilding the reception area at the College Park Airport. His work on the Rough Diamonds, Mid-Atlantic Negro Leagues, and Sandlot Heroes interactive exhibit, celebrating the Prince George's County Tricentennial. All these things are a lasting legacy for his work. And then last, we have Jasper White, gardener, who's retiring from the commission after 25 years of service. He's responsible for all sorts of gardening tasks throughout the county. As we know, we're the largest landowner in the county. That's a lot of grass, and that's a lot of work. Over the years, he's received a number of accolades as well, and he's definitely recognized for his contributions to the opening of the Laura Bellsville Senior Activity Center and earning the Innovator Award for Excellence in Organic Innovation at Westphalia Community Center. Just speaks to the range of things that our folks do here at the commission. I want to thank each of you for your expertise, respectively, in carpentry, gardening, park maintenance, and other trades. I want to thank you for your dedication to maintain, repairing, and enhancing our fields, our parks, our facilities throughout the county, and your commitment to creating enjoyable environments for the residents, visitors throughout the county. Thanks to each of you for all of your good work over the years, and we wish you a very happy retirement. And commissioners, if there's nothing else to add, unless there is, then I would look for a motion for these 3 resolutions.
Motion to approve resolutions, and I would like to associate myself with your comments and commend those individuals on their service to the county and a wonderful retirement.
Indeed.
And I second, and I join you both in congratulating each of them.
Thank
I'm
you.
doing
And Mr.
third.
Carter, I neglected to, if you had is there anything you wanted to say or add along those lines? Let me just give you a quick sec. Apologize for not having you go first.
You talking to me, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I will like to say congratulations to each and every one of them, and we wish them the best in their next endeavor. And they have all been valued employees to the commission for that time of service. So congratulations, and the executive leadership team wishes you each well in your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We've got a motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye and share my colleagues' comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dorner?
Vote aye and ditto.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for all three of you for all your good work. Next item on our agenda, item 2, I'd look for a motion to approve the draft minutes from December 5, 2024.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
And a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey, I believe. So there's discussion. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Next, we have some legislative. I believe we do have legislative updates. We have one item. Ms. Ford, you're going to take us through this one?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
So we have one bill for you this morning for your consideration. It is MCPG 114. Yes, 114-25. This bill was filed last session, and it's being brought back again this session. This is a familiar bill to this board. This bill would give municipalities with more than 15,000 population, it would give them zoning authority, and it would give them the powers of the planning board, the hearing examiner, and the district council. But it would leave in place the county's zoning ordinance in these areas. So technically the bill is flawed because it doesn't really explain how you would have basically 5 different jurisdictions making different decisions on master plan conformance and different decisions on zoning interpretations, like how do you measure height, and have that all work so that it's not unfair to property owners. There are other issues, with the premise as well, in terms of adding additional jurisdictions and whether that's a good idea. But generally speaking, we think that we should go with our last position, which was that we would oppose the bill. We're happy to work with anyone on this issue and talk it through. We do think that any effort in this direction really would need to involve the county as well as us, and probably can't be done with just a simple bill. It's a complicated issue, and any bill is going to have unintended consequences in our view. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Commissioners, we've been down this road before. Are there any thoughts, reactions, questions this time around? If not, I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we oppose MCPG 114-25.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner, I believe. Giraldo.
Nope. Yeah, I'll second it anyways. Definitely agree.
We got a third.
Third
We got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. If there's no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
But I.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Borden.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Bachman-Covered as well. And we'll move
No
on
problem.
to
Thank you. Bye-bye.
move on to item 3C in our agenda, Parks and Rec item and assessment report briefing. Catching us up in support of CAPRA, just to inform us of, we're going to have Ms. Ewing and Ms. Jackson. This is informational only, and we'll turn it over to you. Actually, Mr. Carter, anything you want to kick us off with?
Sure. Good morning again, Chair Shapiro, Vice Chair Bailey, Planning Board members. For the record, Steve Carter, Acting Director for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Hope all of you are well. And at this time, I will turn it over to Sonia Ewing, our Division Chief for Park Planning and Environmental Stewardship.
Good morning. Thank you, Acting Director Carter. On behalf of our Deputy Lynn Pettiford and our Director who's out today, I'll say hello as well for the record. My name is Sonia Ewing. I am representing our Park Planning and Environmental Stewardship team and the team that is moving forward with our planned update for our Formula 2040 plan, which includes supervisor of our park planning section, Tanya Hedgepeth, and Park Planner 3, Don Herring. I'll pass it to Molly in a moment, but I want to give you guys a precursor of where we're headed and introduce this item today. Next slide. Our team is preparing for an update for our Formula 2040 plan. As you know, it's best practice for master plans to be updated in that 7 to 10 year range, and we're at that point. Formula 2040 was was created in 2013, but also as a measure of compliance with our CAPRA and also with our best practices. We'd like to do a 5-year review of where we are, and that's what we're presenting today. So we'll go through that. We'll give you some highlights of the progress report that we included in your backup, and then we'll talk a bit about where we're headed with our master plan update. Next slide. As many of us know, CAPRA is an accreditation body for park and recreation agencies. We're in the CAPRA review process, and this document is a key element of our overall self-assessment. And the CAPRA team will be working forward in these next steps to make sure that we continue to be in alignment with the best practices of that agency. Next slide. Just for context, our planning efforts in the Parks Department have been happening formally for over the last, this puts us at about 15 plus years. The agency really began with this deep dive with an effort called 2010 and Beyond. And that was the first time we believe that the agency kind of went in and did strategic implementation planning and looked at our overall structure, how we deliver services, and how we can be prepared to continue to evolve with the growing needs of our county. That led to the Formula 2040 plan itself, which was approved in 2013. We did our first progress report on the Formula 2040 plan in 2019, and then we are here today with this update progress report in 2024. Next slide. Quickly, 2040 was seen to be a 25-year plan. It's a functional master plan, kind of similar to our public facilities master plan transportation, the natural resources plan, kind of looking overall at how park and recreation is delivered for Prince George's County, and how we work as a department to deliver those. It includes visions, goals, and policies, and it guides our delivery of services, amenities, and programming. Next slide. I was actually going to keep rolling, but this is my time to kind of cut and pass to Molly. I get started and I can just go. So I'll introduce to you Marlene Jackson, who's joined our team in the last year, and we're excited about her role as project lead on this effort.
Good
Thank
morning.
you,
You can
Ms.
hear me okay?
Jackson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. You can hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me just announce myself again for the record. My name is Marlene Jackson, but most people refer to me as Molly. Please feel free to call me either name. I answer to both. I also just want to say I'm really, really excited to be on this side of the commission as a Prince George's County resident and spending my adult life here. I've spent my childhood, I grew up in Montgomery County, but as an adult, I've moved to Prince George's County. So my life is now a little bit more sustainable because my work is in the same county that I live. So I also just want to thank my team for welcoming me to the fold, and it's been a pleasure so far. I also just want to jump into this, and I didn't get to say this before. I mean, on the last slide, but this is an important moment, and I just want to put a pin in that and express that this master plan is not starting from scratch. We're continuing the work that we've done in the past and just making strides to be better and better as we go. I love this image of these young folks who are playing basketball, which is something that is near and dear to my heart. I used to play basketball too, and having a huddle moment with this group and saying that let's acknowledge the work that has been done so far, but the game's not over. We're still in the game. We're still moving through the motions, and we're not starting from scratch. We are building on the skills that we already have. We're building on the information that we already have, and we're just making really great strides in improving that. And so just to kind of throw something out there, most people are not familiar, or maybe they are, but if you're not, the actual formula stands for parks plus recreation equals a really quality experience. And that speaks to the mission of the department. And when I say an experience, what type of experience we're looking for, it's one that honors the environment and cultural legacy, embraces diversity, improves access, and fosters participation. So I like to think of this equation somewhat similar to how we think about placemaking and planning. We're connecting people to the place in order for them to have a quality experience, which is very, very key and important, especially for the residents. When they go to our facilities, when they enjoy our facilities, it's because they are being linked to a quality experience. Next slide. So in mentioning the importance of this plan, I also want to make sure that we know that this progress report, this first progress report, was done in 2013, and now we're updating. I'm sorry, 2019, and now we're updating this progress report in 2024. But the next one, we might want to give a little bit of thought and consideration when I'm going through these slides and highlighting how far we've come in 10 years since the original plan was approved, how we will utilize this moment, because we're at that 40% mark, which is a critical moment. The next time we will update this report will be 2029, and then we'll have 11 years remaining to kind of see the vision come to fruition. So I want to also acknowledge not only the fact that we are tackling this plan, that we're updating this plan, but the timing of now and moving into the future. Again, this is a 25-year vision that we're seeing come to fruition. So this is something that is going to reinforce our actions, our decision making moving forward. Next slide. This is also a good slide to kind of talk about what that action or what those strategies might be. And we have a number of strategies, but just to kind of give you a sense of the overall structure or framework for making decisions, there's 3 key goals. The first goal being connectivity, connecting people to the infrastructure, to the place.
The second goal that we tend to emphasize is the health and wellness component, second. But then there's the economic development, which is as equally as important as the other three. They set the tone, and then we have objectives to accomplish those goals, and what we like to call strategies and action items specifically. So there's an overall framework that this Formula 2040 has established for us in making decisions and making sure that we're measuring progress as we move forward. Next slide. So the original plan, like I said, was done in 2013. At that time, the projected population was about 992,701 people. And now the projection is over 1 million people. We're essentially adding about 0.7% to this overall county. And this slide is a good slide to kind of show you where all of the service areas are, which are, communities, neighborhoods in and of themselves. The folks, the staff is very diligent about not treating them as a number, but actually understanding the needs of each individual service area. And I want to say in my process of gathering this information, there's some very passionate subject matter experts that spend a lot of time in each one of these service areas just to make sure that they are meeting the needs of each service area as its own community, as its own neighborhood. And so one of the highlights, one of the general rules of thumb is that folks are able to get to a facility within a 15-minute drive, or that they have access to recreation space, and that space is large enough to accommodate their needs. Next slide. And with the population growth, I just want to say one of the things that is indicated in the report is that we might want to give some consideration to reevaluating, how we're measuring progress over time, because some of the facts and figures that we have in our that we've laid out as sort of a standard, a level of service standard actually, have changed. And in fact, the LPPRP in 2022 changed the acres per person from 35 to 31 acres per person. But it's also diving a little bit deeper into the context of having access to just open space, developed parkland, undeveloped parkland, neighborhood parks, community parks, special use parks, regional parks, green spaces. So it's not just about the numbers, is what I'm saying. Is the level of service is a way of tracking progress and performance over time. It's no different from a level of service for roads or for police, for police and emergency equipment and services to the public. And so we look at our parks, our parkland in that same vein. And when we're not able to, just to highlight so just kind of draw on the highlights, meat of this presentation, probably where, I'm sorry, is there a comment or question?
I don't think so. I
heard
think it's just background noise.
Okay, great. I just heard some feedback, just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the meat of what you probably might have questions about, but some of the highlights that wanted to just note for the record is when we acknowledge that driving is a privilege. So when residents aren't able to get to us, we go to them. And so one of the highlights is the mobile program, which is, it has more than one program, but we kind of lumped them together as one bullet. It doesn't do the bullet justice, but there are a number of programs, including the Sankofa Mobile Museum and the Arts on a Roll van. And so we acknowledge that there's an equity component to making sure that people can actually be connected to the programs that are being done. When they can't come to us, we go to them. The other accomplishment worth noting is the 22 miles of natural surface trail. In the economic development component, or the goal, we'll talk a little bit about how we're able to fund this this highlight and how we're able to achieve 22 miles of natural surface trails. And then the last thing I just want to kind of draw your attention to is the Parks Direct, which is an updated registration system that allows us to keep track and monitor the programs from a technological standpoint. Next slide.
Hey, Molly, just real quick, let me jump in before
Yeah.
you go over to the next slide. If I don't know if Kenny's driving and whoever's driving, if they can just kind of go back real quick. The bullet right there about the natural surface trails, how close are we in total? We were trying to hit a goal of like 400 miles of trails in the county, and I was wondering how close we were in terms of getting towards that goal. This is fantastic on the natural surface trails. I'd asked in other prior year budget hearings to get some of the devices that they have in Montgomery County where we can go out and make the creation of natural surface trails a lot quicker and kind of cut them through and stuff. So I'm just wondering where we are in progress for that. And then the other question in terms of the Wi-Fi access, that's fantastic. I've noticed when I've been at playgrounds and other places that we don't have Wi-Fi access, and that's constantly kind of like the bane of my existence. If like my daughter wants to jump on like the videos or something, I'm trying to like do something with my son and trying to like just deal with two kids at once. So I'm very happy to see that, but I wanted to find out where, if we have like a map of that, or like where we're falling short in terms of the Wi-Fi access, and if we're having equitable access across the county for rolling those out as well.
No, great. Those are items. I guess one of the key highlights of our presentation today is that we'll be back in January to officially kick off the planning board, the plan update. We'll provide detailed information on our trail status. We are going to look at that 400 miles measure. As a part of this update, we think there may be a better way to measure our progress, but we have added hundreds of miles of trails in the last 10 years. And so we'll be able to give you that exact number in our January presentation. And then we'll also include a map about the Wi-Fi access and additional information about that Wi-Fi access and the equitable distribution of it.
Okay, cool. And Mr. I mean, I know you're well aware of the capital bike share and the connectivity kind of stuff as well. That'd be something else that I'd be really interested in knowing, regardless of connecting trails themselves, or I guess connectivity is the big thing for me, not just mileage, but connectivity. And regardless of like, if we're hitting that same goal of the 400, I would also be interested in measuring it in terms of like, where are we putting in other access points to even make it easier for people to use the trails, even if we're not going forward or advancing the mileage. If we're making it more easy to use the trails and easier to get around to different places on the trails, I think that would also be success rates.
Yes, we're excited to talk about that because we've made a lot of progress, and Capital Bike Share actually opened at a number of new parks in the last week. So we will definitely have more of that information to share as we go through the update process. And there are some highlights in this report.
Cool.
And I'm going to move through the rest of these slides really quickly. Next slide. I just want to make a point here because it's a little misleading. One of the bullets from the notable achievements regarding the multi-gens facilities. We have constructed multi-gen facilities for two different facilities. But what's important to note is that with the multi-gen facility, it can be a little tricky. We have to do feasibility studies to make sure it's actually possible. And with the Marlow Heights one in particular, this is us doing kind of an adaptive reuse or elevating and renovating an existing facility. It's not technically a multi-gen facility. So I just wanted to clarify that, but it will be delivered in 2025. So we are upgrading the facility itself, Marlow Heights, but it's not technically a multi-gen facility. It will be a new facility though, fairly new. And when we're talking about multi-gen facilities, we're talking about millions of dollars. So each one of those multi-gen facilities that you might be actually enjoying, it costs in upwards of $110 million. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that we're studying the best place to put them because it's a significant investment that we're making. Next slide. And so this last one touches on economic development, and I was going to actually make the point of how much we have been able to achieve with the grant, the $25 million grant, which is a federal grant. It's a regional grant that we're very excited to have been given. And just to answer your point, where the goal is 400 miles, we're roughly at 117 miles existing and about 84 miles planned. So our goal is an additional 181 miles to be added to be able to achieve our 400-mile goal by 2040. Next slide. And so this is the last slide. I want to open it up for any additional questions, but I don't think that we have time. So I will say, if you have questions, you can definitely email us and pass along those questions to us. And we'll be back soon to kind of talk about the update and initiate the beginning of Formula 40's update. So the master plan update.
Hold on.
With that, I just also want to say thank you to the staff that helped to gather this information. It's been a pleasure. They're all so passionate about what they're doing. And I just want to acknowledge not only PEEPS, but the division chiefs and their staff that are working hard in the background. Thank you.
We appreciate the kind words. And hold on, because I do believe we're going to have some additional questions. So we have Commissioner Giraldo and then Commissioner Dorner.
I have a question. Thank you, Molly, so much for that presentation. I have a question with the next to last slide with regards to the kayak launch. Where is that planned for?
So it's already been constructed, and I'm sorry, Sonia, I jumped in because I do believe that is the Bladensburg project. It's already been done, and it's at the waterfront, the Bladensburg waterfront project.
Okay. The reason I asked is there's a beautiful place in Fort Washington, right on Riverview Road, that could use a boat and a kayak launch. I think Miss Ewing knows what I'm speaking about. We're going to go see it in January anyway.
When the weather breaks.
With the wet, right.
I see Acting Director Carter smiling as well, so I believe they both know what you're talking about.
That's all I have to hear.
Commissioner Dorner.
Yeah, I'd encourage Commissioner Giraldo to come up to Bladensburg in the north side of the county and check out the Bald Eagles when he's launching from the kayak area as well. We get a lot of crew boats and stuff down there. It's a really nice setup that they have. And you can go all the way down to Potomac, and then you can come back up. You can go down to the DC line and cross it if you want to, and come on back upriver as well. But I wanted to ask about one thing with the Parks Direct system. My experience as a resident signing up for the camps has been bad. It's been really tough to get through on the sign up days. Like I'm person 1,700 or something signing up in the waiting list. And that's when I'm trying to get on early. If I accidentally refresh something or lose my Wi-Fi signal, I go from like person 500 to like 2,000. And then I don't get my kids signed up for camps or anything like that because it's really tough to do this. So I'm wondering what kind of IT resources we can throw at that to improve it, because it's great to see the popularity of these programs, but it's really tough to figure out like what camps. And then like I've got a list of like backup camps and other stuff that I want to do, or like programs, and then all of those fill up. So there's not it's really frustrating is my kind of conclusion to this. And that's unfortunate because we have such great offerings, but I get extremely frustrated, and I didn't even bother to sign my kids up this winter because it was just too tough, and it was just such a bad experience the past couple of times I've tried to do this. So I wonder what we can do to fix that. And I'll also say that for the Windsor stuff that we've been getting a bunch of emails on, our staff are fantastic, and I actually got a couple of calls from them signing up and saying, hey, we have these things coming out soon if you want to sign up. And they had no idea they're calling like a commissioner doing that. But it was really good to see them doing proactive outreach for that.
We will note that I think a big opportunity for us in this update process is really to kind of look at areas where we're strong, which we're showing in these highlights, but we also are noting areas for improvement and strategies to get there with key implementation steps and assignments to be able to track our progress going forward. So we'll be digging into those kind of conversations in the spring.
Thanks for that. Commissioners, any other questions for the team? If not, let's, on behalf of all of us, thank you for all this good work. It's an excellent presentation. It's exciting to see all the progress, and as Commissioner Dorner's and other note, there are also areas of improvement, and we appreciate you being attentive to that as well. So, but thank you all. Thanks for the good work, and thanks for the excellent presentation.
Well done. Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on, we will go to item consent agenda items. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the staff's recommendations on items 4A, B, D, and E, or any board member who wishes to discuss any of these items? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
After consideration of the items on the consent agenda, I move adoption of all items on the consent agenda in accordance with recommendation of staff.
Second.
A motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey.
But I.
Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Move on to our regular agenda items. Again, item 5 has been removed from the agenda. Move on to item 6. This is a countywide planning division mandatory referral 2023 MRF 2023-016 National Harbor Public Safety Building. I believe that Mr. Ray is going to be giving the staff presentation on this.
That's correct.
Great. All right, Mr. Ray, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Yes, I will be Ms. Walker's stand-in this morning. So for the record, my name is Bobby Ray with the Special Projects Section. This mandatory referral review is MRF 2023-016 for the National Harbor Public Safety Building. The proposal was reviewed per Land Use Article Section 20-301 through 305 of the Maryland Annotated Code for Mandatory Referrals. The project is for the construction of a 10,000 square foot, 2-story office building with associated parking on an approximately 57-acre site. The project is a joint public safety facility to include the Maryland National Capital Park Police, Prince George's County Police, and the Fire EMS departments. The purpose of the project is to improve coordination of public safety at the National Harbor. The Planning Board approved Park & Planning's lease with the county for the subject property on July 18th, I believe. Next slide, please. The project is located in Council District 8 in Planning Area 80, located within the Established Communities Growth Policy Area. Next slide. The 57-acre parcel is located at the end of North Cove Terrace, between the on and off ramps to Interstate 495 and Interstate 295 at 11 National Harbor Boulevard in Oxon Hill. Next slide. The site is zoned reserved open space and RTOLE, which is regional transit oriented, low intensity edge. Next slide, please. The property is located within the Chesapeake Bay Limited Development Overlay and within the Intense Development Overlay. Next slide, please. The aerial view of the site shows the parcel with the mostly vacant land. Next slide. The site is located within the 8-digit Patuxent River watershed. Next slide. And the site is located between off ramps from Interstate 295 and Interstate 495. Next slide, please. The proposed project includes a 10,000 square foot, 2-story building, as mentioned. It will include a small community room for public use, and associated parking for this facility includes 73 spaces. Next slide. The applicant sent notification to adjoining property owners on January 17th, 2024, and a notice mailing was sent by planning staff on October 25th to 2024. Next slide. The next two slides list the permit requirements, as you can see. Slide 14, please. Let's see, one more, I'm sorry.
13.
There we go. I'm sorry, back one for the site plan. There we go, thank you. The site plan shows the location of the office building. The site will have two egress points. One at the same point of ingress will be asphalt driveways. The proposed parking lot shown here will have an asphalt service with 73 spaces. Next slide, please. And the next two slides show the staff recommendations for the project, providing a photometric plan to show no glare onto adjacent properties, add plantings or dumpster enclosure to further screen the trash and recycling facilities, construct a minimum 5-foot wide concrete pedestrian path from the Woodrow Wilson Memorial Bridge Trail to the north side of the building's parking lot. And also, I believe there is a recommendation from the transportation planning staff to include 3 EV parking spaces, or a minimum of 3 spaces in the parking lot as well. Staff recommends that the planning.
With charging as well, the recommendation.
Yes. Thank you. The staff recommends that the planning board adopt the recommendations and transmit them to the applicant. That concludes my presentation. It's my understanding that the applicants failed to sign up to speak, so unfortunately we don't have anyone here present from the project engineers or architects. However, we have some staff members from the Parks Department who could speak to property disposition or something along those lines. So if there's any questions that come up that I'm unable to answer, I will certainly get a response back to you as quickly as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. We're glad this project is moving forward. I did have one question around you mentioned it briefly, around the bike pedestrian access to the site from off-site.
Yes, sir.
And I didn't quite see that in the plan, and I'm wondering how much of given its location, how we're going to pull that off, and how much of a priority it is, and how much a priority it needs to be.
I can't speak to the prioritization of it. I'm not sure if there's anyone on the call from our transportation planning staff.
Hi, this is a mic check.
Yes, Mr. Tenenbaum, we can hear you.
All right, also,
thank you.
Evan, for the record, Evan Tenenbaum with the transportation planning section. When I did the review for this case, I did pay special attention to the specific pedestrian connections that were proposed in this project site, and part of my recommendations were to make the pedestrian connection specifically tied to the public use for this building, the small area for the public use. So there were a couple connections that were made for recommendations from the local trails, and then to work with the applicant that worked with the National Harbor in regards to pedestrian safety from some of the nearby local businesses south of the on-ramp.
Thanks for that. I'm glad you paid attention to that. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Why only a 5-foot sidewalk? Or it's got to be a minimum of that so it can be larger?
That is correct. 5-foot minimum.
Right, I understand that, but can't we recommend a 6-foot?
That is certainly possible. That is up to your judgment as to do that.
I think at this point, given the experience going through COVID, and we were dealing sometimes with 4-foot, and the idea of a 6-foot is just to give more space for people that are walking in opposite directions. whether or not that would make more sense for us, especially on that trail, that whole area, because it's so widely used. I believe that the Woodrow Wilson Bridge Trail is probably the most used or utilized trail in the region.
I have no objection amending. I assume, Mr. Warner, that we can just have that be part of our recommendations to increase the size of the sidewalk, correct?
Sure.
The dog confirms, so I think we're good to go.
The dog knows best.
Exactly. Any other questions for staff on this item?
One technical, on your permitting slides, it referenced Templeton Elementary School. I'm assuming that was just a typo?
Oh my goodness, yes, I'm sorry. That's probably a carryover from an earlier staff report. I apologize for that.
No problem. I just wanted to note it for the record.
Oh, good eye. Mr. Sun, you had your hand raised too?
Good morning, Chair Shapiro. Yes, for the record, my name is Paul Sun, Department of Parks and Recreation. We, as a landlord, do review the final drawings or the final plans for the proposed development. So I think at that point, we'll have opportunities to enforce any of these recommendations and sort of look at them, make sure that these do happen.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Mr. Sun. I appreciate that. All right. No further questions. Then I would look for a motion, colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the recommendations of staff to include a revision to recommendation number 7, such that it will reconstruct a minimum of 6-foot wide concrete pedestrian path. And with that, approve MRF-2023-016 and transmit to the applicant.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Vice Chair Bailey. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ray, for stepping in.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Sun and Mr. Tenenbaum, thank you all very much. Move on to item 7 on our agenda. This is a preliminary plan of subdivision. PPS 2022-042 Livingston Road self-storage. We have Mr. Hatcher representing the applicant. This is we'll have Mr. Bartlett who's giving the staff presentation. This is an evidentiary hearing, so we may have folks who will be testifying. I'll swear them in at the appropriate time. And we'll start with staff. Mr. Bartlett.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, because this one of the opponents is a member of Fort Washington Forward, I think I'm best to recuse myself.
Okay, understood, Commissioner. We'll see you in a bit.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Bartlett.
Okay, quick sound check. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I am Jason Bartlett with the subdivision section. Item number 7 on the agenda is preliminary plan of subdivision for Livingston Road self-storage, case number PPS-2022-042. The subject project proposes 2 parcels for 215,000 square feet of industrial development and 10,000 square feet of institutional development. The application is further subject to an approved certificate of adequacy under case number 80Q-2022-098, which evaluated the industrial development as a proposed self-storage facility and the institutional development as a proposed 170 student daycare center.
As a matter of housekeeping, staff received 2 items of additional backup prior to the noon deadline on December 12th, 2024. They are as follows. Applicant's Exhibit 1 is a letter from the applicant in which the applicant requests revisions to the findings and conditions recommended in the technical staff report, which staff is in agreement with. The second item is a letter from Fort Washington Forward in which they express their continued concerns regarding conflicts between the land use recommendations in the 2006 approved Hinson Creek South Potomac Master Plan and the zoning ordinance, and make recommendations related to the same as it pertains to this application, as well as similar conflicts in the 20744 zip code. Staff recognizes and details the conflicts between the master plan and the zoning ordinance in finding 3 of the technical staff report. More specifically, the master plan recommends mixed-use development, whereas the zoning imposed on the property is industrial employment. Given the conflict, the zoning imposed supersedes the land use recommendations of the master plan. Fort Washington Forward's letter recommends rezoning of the property and land within the 20744 zip code to better align with the development goals of the master plan. However, rezoning of land is outside the scope of this application and must be undertaken by action of the council. As you will note from the aerial map, the site is located on the west side of Maryland 210 and east of Livingston Road, approximately 1,000 feet south of its intersection with Fort Washington Road. Next slide, please. The site's general location is in the southwestern part of Prince George's County within Planning Area 80 and Council District 8. Next slide, please. The site map shows a sloping topography with a slight hill in the northwest portion of the site that gradually slopes downward from the Fort Washington Road and Maryland 210 intersection toward Livingston Road. The site will be graded to make way for the proposed development, except where on-site woodlands and specimen trees are proposed to be preserved. Next slide, please. The zoning map shows that the site is in the industrial employment or IE zone. Land to the north and south of property are also in the IE zone, while land to the west is in the rural residential or RR zone, and land abutting the property to the northeast is in the commercial, general, and office or CGO zone. Next slide, please. The master plan right-of-way map shows that the site has frontage on Maryland 210D, the service road for the Maryland 210 State Highway, at its eastern boundary, as well as frontage on Livingston Road, a master plan collector road, on its western boundary. Appropriate right-of-way dedication for Livingston Road is shown and provided on the preliminary plan, and no dedication is required for Maryland 210D. Next slide, please. The preliminary plan shows 2 parcels outlined in red. Also shown are the primary management areas that will be further discussed on the next slide. Existing and proposed public right-of-way are shown in blue, and proposed access points to the property are shown by the black arrows. Parcel 1 is proposed for gated industrial development to be accessed from Maryland 210D, and Parcel 2 is proposed for institutional development to be accessed from Livingston Road. Next slide, please. This application is subject to the Woodland Conservation Ordinance, and a Type 1 tree conservation plan was submitted with the application, as well as an approved stormwater management plan, which provides stormwater management facilities on parcels 1 and 2. This slide also shows that there are 3 areas of primary management or PMAs on site, as depicted by the bright pink lines, all of which have impacts proposed as highlighted in orange and outlined in bright pink. The applicant further requested a variance from section 25-122B1G with this application for the removal of 4 specimen trees. Staff is recommending approval of this variance as discussed in the environmental findings of the technical staff report. These trees are depicted on this slide by green circles with green X's, and the general woodland conservation is highlighted in green. Next slide, please. This slide provides a closer look at the three previously mentioned impacts to the primary management areas, which are discussed further in the environmental findings of the technical staff report. Next slide, please. This slide shows the open space set-aside exhibit provided by the applicant with this preliminary plan of subdivision in accordance with section 27-6403 of the zoning ordinance. Parcel 2 exceeds the minimum 7.5% open space set-aside requirement for the proposed institutional use. However, Parcel 1 falls short of the minimum 5% requirement for the proposed industrial use. Staff notes that woodland conservation areas may also be counted toward open space set-aside requirement. Staff evaluated the woodland conservation areas as shown on the Type 1 tree conservation plan and have determined that Parcel 1 will meet the open space set-aside requirement by utilizing portions of the woodland preservation area. This requirement will be further analyzed with future site plan applications for both parcels. Next slide, please. In conclusion, subdivision staff recommends that the planning board adopt the findings and approve PPS-2022-042 Livingston Road self-storage, Type 1 tree conservation plan TCP1-027-2024, and a variation from section 25-122B1G, subject to the conditions contained in the technical staff report and as modified by applicant's Exhibit 1. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Commissioners, before we move on to the applicants and hear from folks in the community too, any questions for staff? All right, seeing no questions, we'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Hatcher.
For the record, my name is Chris Hatcher. Thank you, Mr. Chair, commissioners. And for this hearing, I have the distinct honor of passing the Prentice Gaboni from our office will be handling this matter before the board.
Excellent. Ms. Gaboni, take it away.
Good morning, Chair Shapiro and members of the Planning Board. My name is Prentice Gaboni, a land use attorney with C.O. Hatcher LLC, a law firm, and with offices in Laurel, Maryland. Our firm represents the applicant, Livingston Road Associates, for the preliminary plan of subdivision 2022-042, as well as the TCP 1-027-2024 in the variance request that is before you today. We have joining us several members from the applicant's team, including attorney Chris Hatcher, the applicant Ron Wagner and Jim Mertz, our civil engineer David Bickle, and our transportation engineer Mike Linhart. All of them are available to speak and answer any questions the planning board and staff may have for them. As mentioned by staff, this application is proposed to subdivide the property into two parcels, one of which shall contain 215 square feet of industrial development, and the second parcel shall contain 10,000 square feet of institutional development. Additionally, there's a variance request from the Woodland and Wildlife Conservation Ordinance for the removal of 4 specimen trees on the property. I would like to thank planning staff for their diligent work in reviewing this application, along with the variance request in TCP1. And we would also like to extend gratitude to the community stakeholders for their ongoing engagement with us. We've hosted about 5 community meetings over the past 1.5 to 2 years, and they have constantly come out to express their support and involvement and continued involvement with this development. For the record, we have submitted applicant exhibit 1 that proposed a few revisions to the staff's findings and proposed conditions. Staff has had an opportunity to review those revisions and has expressed their support. And in closing, the applicant respectfully asks that the planning board accept staff's findings of fact and conclusions of law as provided in the technical staff report and approve PPS 2022-042, TCP 1027-2024, and the variance request, subject to the conditions found in the staff report as modified by applicant's exhibit 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibonet. Commissioners, before we hear from folks in the community, any questions for the applicants team? Seeing none, we are going to our sign-up sheet. I believe the only person I see signed up to speak is Mr. Owens from Fort Washington Forward. Mr. Owens, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
Excellent. I'm going to need to swear you in, sir. If you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, consider yourself on oath, and the floor is yours. Let me put 5 minutes on the clock to help us manage the time, and if you need a little more time, let me know. But we'll put that up to guide us. Okay.
Sure. Do a quick microphone check.
We can
testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
You're good to go.
So let me get to my sheet here. Appreciate the time this morning. Good morning, commissioners. My name is, as stated, Dave Owens, and I serve as the Planning and Development Unit Leader for the nonprofit organization Fort Washington Forward. I think this case presents another example of a situation where the zoning has remained in place, even though the zoning does not align with the vision of the county's master plan. And thus we agree with the planning department's assessment that the proposed land use does not conform with the recommended use. And similar conflicts have been identified in previous cases by the planning department before. Now, we understand the county's regulation that states when there is a conflict between the master plan and zoning that cannot be reconciled, the zoning supersedes. However, there's been no attempt here to reconcile this conflict, and that continues to be an issue, not just with this particular case, but with other cases before. There does not seem to be an appetite to reconcile these conflicts between the master plan and zoning. And there's actually precedent to do this. Back in March of 2023, the district council initiated the rezoning of 6 properties in the Henson Creek Transit Village, which is located about 1 mile north of this location. And the justification then was to remove, quote, remove and replace certain obsolete development guidelines and maximize the potential for residential and institutional healthcare related development, end quote. Healthcare related development is exactly what the master plan is calling for in this area, and Fort Washington Forward recommends similar rezoning be carried out. During our application, or during our conversations with the applicant, as they have said, Fort Washington Forward and other community members recommended property use such as hospital support, scientific research, satellite education, and workforce development. Not only would this satisfy the actual master plan, one could argue it might not even require a time-consuming zoning change. Now, the applicant, as they stated, they have met with the community on a lot of different occasions. Those efforts are noteworthy and appreciated. Although I would say to the lawyer who just spoke, there hasn't been support, quote, support for self-storage. I think people have been very boisterous that they have not supported that. So I would just mention that. That said, we appreciate the applicant's willingness to meet with the community. Big picture, there is a glaring conflict here between zoning and master plan. It still exists. And until that gets resolved, the potential is there for development to occur that does not serve the community's best interest. And we feel the district council and planning department needs to serve as those guardrails, I should say, against that possibility. So with that said, we recommend that the applicant resubmit a preliminary plan of subdivision that more closely reflects the master plan's vision of mixed uses, capitalizing on the potential expansion of Adventist Healthcare Fort Washington Medical Center. And we also would recommend that the planning department and district council work with Fort Washington Forward and other community organizations to deconflict all areas in 20744, that zip code, where the zoning and master plan do not align. We have started to compile that list. It's not a big list, but we have it. And I think that these can be deconflicted very easily moving forward. So we don't get to this point where there is a conflict and you have applicants, not saying that this is one of them, but you may have some applicants who are willing to develop things that do not have the best interest of the community in mind. So those are our statements, and I'll leave it there at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. And let me just say, in response to your point, I first of all, as always, I appreciate your advocacy. I'll make sure that I speak with the planning director and bring up this very specific issue about looking at these areas and specifically in the areas on Livingston Road, and can see what our options are. I mean, this is action by the district council, but clearly we have a role to play. And so I will make sure that the planning department is looking at this issue and considering our options as well. All right. Commissioners, any other questions, thoughts, reactions? I'll turn back to the applicant. There's no one else who signed up to speak. I'll turn back to the applicant for any rebuttal and close.
Thank you, Chair Shapiro. I just want to say that I thank David for his very accurate statement in clarifying the community's stance in support or not of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gabinet. All right. If there's nothing further, Commissioners, I'm going to close this public hearing. It's to us for deliberation and any action. Thoughts, reactions, or what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and the findings as amended by applicant exhibit number 1 and approve preliminary plan PPS-2022-042, TCP 1-027-2024, and variance to section 25-122B1G to include the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further amended by applicant exhibit number 1.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Vice Chair Bailey. Under discussion, the other thing I'd say is, again, Mr. Owens, I promise you that we'll be following up with our planning department and looking at this issue as we move forward.
Can I make a quick statement there, Commissioner?
Let's hold off on that because we're past the public hearing point, and we're under discussion on the motion. If there's no further discussion on the motion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Dorner. Apologize.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thanks everybody for your participation. Mr. Owens, you wanted to say something real quick. The public hearing is closed, but is there something you want to add real quick?
No, I would only state that again, I appreciate your response to that, Commissioner Shapiro, and even the others. I think the big concern here is I think there is a feeling of regulation and tactical procedure that people don't want to bypass. We have an applicant here who has been very willing to meet with the community. We appreciate that, but you know, if there are no guardrails for the community to protect its community, which is the master plan, then we don't really have any recourse. And so there has got to be, you know, I'm doing my own personal job right now while I'm listening in on this hearing. I heard a lot this morning from just the Parks and Recreation about master plan and other people about master plan. If we don't protect the master plan, residents don't have any recourse. And so there has got to be, from the district council, from the planning department, and from the planning board, someone's got to stand up for that. And if no one's been willing to do that, if no one's willing to do that, we don't really have any recourse. And that is dangerous precedent moving forward. And so I would just encourage us to really look at that and figure out ways to do that. Fort Washington Forward is ready to help in that regard.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. And let me just say for the record, I'm confident that staff, this is for the public broadly, I'm confident that staff's recommendation does follow the letter of the law. And you know, this is what we are bound by, but I will commit again to making sure that we have this conversation with our planning director and see what options we have moving forward. Again, Mr. Owens, thank you. Mr. Bartlett, thank you. Mr. Hatcher, Ms. Gibbonnet, I want to thank everybody for your time in this case, and we will move on with our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and you know, just for everybody's benefit, I actually believe this is Ms. Gaboni's first case before the planning board, so very excited for her.
Oh, you waited until after she presented to tell us that. There's our typical hazing period, Ms. Gabonnet.
I know, right, exactly. We'll get to the next one.
Welcome.
Oh, the next one isn't too far.
All right, there we go.
Okay, we look forward.
Oh, look at that. Item 8 on our agenda. Detailed site plan, DSP 21037-01, Glenwood Hills. We have Mr. Gingles, who's representing the applicant, or maybe not. We have Mr. Huang, who's going to be giving staff presentation. And I will start with staff's, I'm sorry, this is a recommendation for a continuance to January 9, 2025. But we'll start with staff, Mr. Huang.
Mr. Chair, let me do the sound check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of soft, but we can hear you.
Okay, let me speak a bit louder. I haven't really talked yet. Okay, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the planning board. For the record, I'm Emery Huang with Urban Design Section. Item number 8 is detailed site plan, DSP-21037-01, Glenwood Hills, which is for the development of 5 warehouse distribution buildings on parcels 1 to 6, Block C, and structures on parcel 1, Block D. On November 25th, 2024, the attorney representing the applicants, Mr. Andrew Gingle, requested to continue this application to January 9th, 2025 to revise parking methodology for the subject detailed site plans. With such a request, the applicants has provided a 70-day extension to the planning board action limits, which is now expires on January 9th, 2025. They have recommended that the planning board approve the request for continuance to January 9th, 2025. This concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. We'll now turn to the applicant. Might I say, Ms. Gibbonnet, are you going to be speaking to this?
I am.
Before you start, commissioners, any no hazing? Okay, you can go.
Good morning again. My name is Prentice Gibbonet. For the record, I'm a land use attorney with CL Hatcher, with a law firm with offices in Laurel, Maryland. Our firm, alongside with Kingles LLC, represents the applicant, Glenwood Hills Venture, for the DSP 23017-01 before you today. Attorney Gingles is also on the line if you should have any questions for him as well. As Emery stated, we have submitted a continuance request to the planning board date of January 9th, 2025, to revise the parking methodology for this application. And so in closing, the applicant respectfully asks that the planning board accepts staff's recommendation and grants the applicant's request for continuance to hold the hearing on January 9th, 2025 for DSP 21037-01. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbonet. I do see Ms. Queen, Belinda Queen. Are you signed up for this item? And do you have something you want to speak to the request for the continuance, not of the subject, the content, but on the request for the continuance?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to wait till January 9th. Thank you so very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Queen. Okay, so we have before us a request for continuance. Commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item?
Move approval of the request for continuance to January 9th, 2025.
I'll second.
We got a motion by Vice Chair Bailey, a second by Commissioner Washington. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye, and just apologies, having some connection issues here, so my camera's off briefly.
No problem. Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
And Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Gibbonet.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good day.
Move on to item 9 on our agenda. This is a countywide planning division fiscal year 2025 historic property grant program award recommendations. We have Mr. Gross and Mr. Tanner is going to be giving a staff presentation on this, and we will turn it over to you fine people to catch us up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Tom Gross, and I'm only here to introduce Daniel Tanner. I will turn it over to him. Thank you.
Mr.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and other planning board people. I am here today to present the FY 2025 Historic Property Grant Program recommendations from the Historic Preservation Commission. Could I have the next slide, please? Just for some brief background, which I'm sure you all are aware of at this point, 2025 is the 16th year of this program, and in the first 15 years, we have awarded $5.4 million so far. Next slide, please. So for fiscal year 2025, we had a $440,100 total program budget that was authorized and announced in July 2004. We held 4 virtual workshops throughout July and August with 29 total registrations. We received 13 applications from around the county. One of them was determined to be ineligible based on program guidelines. 2 of them were withdrawn before the final deadline, which left us with these remaining 10 applications that were considered for funding, requesting a total of $474,999.50 in funding. So the grants from this program are designed to preserve, protect, and enhance historic properties via the rehabilitation, restoration, and preservation of these historic properties. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. And that is done via scoring by these criteria, which have been approved by the planning board in the program guidelines. Next slide, please. This is where the applications were received from this year. We received applications from County Council Districts 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9, as shown here. Next slide, please. And then, so this is, after reviewing these applications, the grant committee reviewed them and made these recommendations to the Historic Preservation Commission, which heard the recommendations in November, and now the Historic Preservation Commission is recommending these same results to you. We do have detailed information about each of the sites and applications that came in this year. If anybody has questions or would like any details reviewed on them. But if not, then I will move to the next slide, which is our staff HPC's recommendation. The Historic Preservation Commission recommends that the Planning Board approve Historic Property Grant Program awards for the 2025 program year, totaling $394,134.99, based on the applications received and the grant committee recommendations. And that concludes staff's presentation, unless you all would like to see any more.
I appreciate that, Mr. Jana. I wouldn't mind, I don't want to take a lot of time on this, and maybe it's just the pretty pictures, but is it possible just to scroll through just so we can at least sort of get the emotional reaction to the projects that we're looking at? Because some of them, even on that brief title slide, some of them look fascinating.
There's one project that wasn't full, that didn't receive a substantial amount of what it asked for. They only got like 19,000 in Patuxent. So I just wanted to find out a little bit more of like how that decision went through.
Oh, sure. I believe that is toward the end of these slides. I'm not sure what
maybe
number
if you could, literally take 15, 20 seconds on each one, just so we can sort of see and move through.
Yeah. Could I have the next? Oh, thank you. So this is the Corey House. They requested funding for their window restoration. You can see some of these very nice stained glass historic windows. They also were going to do some HVAC replacement and electrical updates and repairs. And then on the next slide, I believe that shows the budget that was requested. And for them, they actually got the full amount. So there is no second slide. So if we move on to the next slide, that should be the next property, which is the Holbrook House in College Park. They requested $50,000 and the recommended funding was $41,535.49 for window replacement, exterior stucco cleaning and repair. And then on the next slide, you can see again, their budget. This is sort of how it was marked up in the committee hearing. So the window replacements, that was funded in full, and then these cleaning, remediation, demolition things, and the restoration of trim. In the contractor proposals, those were described somewhat differently and not, they didn't appear to be within the realm of things that we would cover in the program or that would necessarily be approved by the HPC. So those were deducted from the total, and that's where we came up with the final amount. Next slide, please. And then this shows you again the wood windows, which were approved for coverage. Next slide should be the next property. Oh, no, we're still on Holbrook House. This is the final budget. Sorry, I went through with a lot of detail on some of these. I apologize. This is the Sissel House in Berwyn Heights, which was recommended for the full amount, $50,000 to repair the fascia, gutters, restore fenestration, and insulate and waterproof the basement and attic. If we could jump ahead 2 slides, I think. And then the next one, great. This is the Lounge House in Hyattsville, which was also recommended for $50,000 for in-kind roof replacement on the house and the garage, and then repair with in-kind replacement as necessary of the wood siding, followed by repainting of all of the wood siding. And we can jump ahead 2 from here as well, please. Thank you. This is the Claggett House at Cool Spring Manor, recommended for $25,000 in funding for the refinishing or the finishing of porch ceilings and railings, exterior door, shutter and window hardware, and the completion of construction of an interior staircase. They had requested more as well, and you can see that on the next slide, the budget here. And what was deducted from this was work that focused primarily on the interior of the building and not on exterior or structural features, which are, that's sort of defined in the program guidelines as things that will not be eligible for funding. So that's why those were removed. Next slide, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dina, before you jump in, if Kenny's running things, I think there was one site that was missed between the Lounge House and Claggett, another property in Hyattsville.
Oh, yes, Mount Hermon. Thank you, Tom.
Go back one more if you could. There you go. Nice.
Yes, This is one of our newest historic sites, actually, and they applied for funding while that process was ongoing, and they have received the full $50,000 requested for window restoration and new architecturally appropriate replacement windows. You can see in some of these photos where windows have been boarded up or even bricked up, and they're planning to get those back to the way they were. So that's that one. And then, so I guess we could jump ahead maybe two more from here, I think. Yes, thank you. So this is Perrywood. They were recommended for $29,019.50 to repair the shutters and repaint shutters and the house exterior as well, and then remove this boiler and oil tank and replace them with a more efficient system. Can we go two more from there, please? This is the Helen Dwight Reed House, which they requested funding for the replacement of vinyl windows so that they could be replaced with more historically accurate windows that match the home's original appearance.
Where's that house located?
This is in
Fort Washington.
Fort Washington. Sorry.
Fort Washington.
Thank you, Don.
Manny, look familiar?
No, it doesn't. What's the street address?
Let's see.
Reed Circle, Commissioner Giraldo.
Reed Circle.
Reed Circle. It's not a cul-de-sac. It's a loop. I can provide the address.
I'm not familiar with that. Not familiar with that.
Yeah. I don't recognize it.
It's 13507 Reed Circle in Fort Washington.
Okay, thank you.
That helps. Two more slides, please. Oh, sorry, maybe one more past that. This is just details on the windows. This is St. Mary's Rectory. They applied for funding for $50,000 to do a pretty comprehensive window repair and rehabilitation program for the whole house. So fairly straightforward, and they were recommended for full funding. Could we go two from here again? And then this is the one that I believe was brought up before. This is 23509 Patuxent Boulevard. In Eagle Harbor. They were recommended for $14,150 worth of funding to replace the roof. Well, what they applied for was replacement of a metal roof and remodeling of the exterior. And then if we can go to the next slide, I believe that shows the budget breakdown. So a few of these things, the permit processing fees and stuff like that and architectural drawings, those are actually not allowed under the capital grant program guidelines because they're not capital expenses. And then for the metal roofing, that expense, which was a fairly large part of their budget, we typically won't change roofing materials on a historic site unless we have evidence that that's the material that was there before. So in this case, we don't have any documentation to back that up. And also it has a fairly new asphalt shingle roof, so we took that into consideration as well and didn't want to fund a conjectural or any kind of false historical work like that. So that's why that was removed in this case. But otherwise, everything else was funded. But that large expense was, made a fairly big difference between the ask and what was granted or recommended for granting.
Okay.
And then I believe that's the last one. So I think the next slide is just the recommendations again.
All right, thank you very much for going into additional detail. It's interesting and inspiring, so I'm glad you took a few more minutes on it. Commissioners, any questions for staff on these items?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question. I don't know if it'd be better after the vote. It's not regarding any of these particular properties, but it's more a general question with regards to why properties owned by Maryland National Capital Park and Planning are not eligible for the program. If anybody knows.
Are they? Are they or are they not? That's a good
They're
question.
not. No, they're not eligible. And so I was wondering how.
For the record, Tom Gross, Commissioner Giraldo, I think the idea there is because the funding is provided from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. It's a planning board program.
Okay.
And so that sort of speaks to the ineligibility because the commission would essentially be funding its own projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we have a staff yes, this is an action item. We have staff recommendation. What is your pleasure, commissioners?
Move approval of the fiscal year 2025 Historic Property Grant Program Awards.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. If there's no discussion on the motion, we'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. Mr. Tanner, Mr. Gross, thank you very much for all your good work on this program.
Thank you.
We have one more item on our agenda. This is detailed site plan DET item 10 on our agenda. Detailed site plan DET 2023-011 Addison Park. This item was continued from the November 21, 2024 Planning Board meeting. We've got Mr. Horn representing the applicant, I believe. There he is. We have Ms. Kozak giving a staff presentation. This is an evidentiary hearing. If folks are intending to speak on this, we'll swear them in at the appropriate time. Imagine Mr. Edwards. First of all, good to see you, and you've been very patient with us. So I'll swear you in before you speak, assuming you're going to be speaking. We'll start with staff. Ms. Kozak, take it away.
Yes, mic check. Can everyone hear
Yeah,
me?
we can hear you. You're a little soft, but we can hear you.
Okay, let's see what I can do here.
Better.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jill Kosak with the Urban Design Section. The item before you is number 10, DET 2023-011 for Addison Park, with the companion applications listed in the staff report and on the screen here. The DET proposes to develop 293 dwelling units for apartment housing for the elderly in 2 buildings. The property is the subject to the previous preliminary plan of subdivision, PPS 2023-024, which was approved for the same development in June of 2024. Staff is recommending approval with conditions for DET 2023-011 and its companion applications. The applicant submitted an exhibit with revised findings and conditions. Staff is in agreement with revised finding 3 and revised condition 1S, but it is our understanding the applicant intends to withdraw the revision relative to condition 1W1 and revised finding 5, but they can speak to that in their turn. Next slide, please. The site is located in Planning Area 75A and Council District 7. Next slide, please. The subject DET is located on the south side of Maryland 332, which is Old Central Avenue, approximately 1,300 feet west of its intersection with Addison Road. Next slide, please. The subject property is in the current RSF 65 zone. However, as allowed by Section 27-1408 of the zoning ordinance, the DET is filed pursuant to the uses and regulations of the Local Transit Oriented Core Zone, LTOC zone, as the property is located fully within the Addison Road Metro Local Transit Center and includes properties owned by the Redevelopment Authority of Prince George's County. The apartment housing for the elderly dwelling use is permitted in the LTOC zone, subject to the applicable standards in Section 274204 of the zoning ordinance. Next slide, please. The subject property is currently not in any overlay zones. Next slide, please. The aerial shows the site is vacant with some existing buildings that are to be demolished, but there are no regulated environmental features. Next slide, please. The map shows the adjacent master planned rights-of-way, which includes Maryland 214, an arterial to the northeast shown in red, MD 332, a collector to the northwest shown in green, and Rollins and Yolanda Avenues, which are primary roads to the west of each parcel shown in pink. Next slide, please. This enlarged aerial shows the existing buildings on the property, including a portion of the prior Linden Hill Elementary School on the left, which is to be demolished within the subject DET property. Next slide, please. The subject detailed site plan proposes development of 293 apartment housing for the elderly dwelling units in 2 4-story U-shaped buildings on 2 proposed parcels, known as parcels 1 and 4. Parcel 1 on the left in this image is an L shape located south of Maryland 332 and east of Rollins Avenue at the western end of the subject property. 1 two-way driveway access point is provided in the northeast corner of the parcel from Maryland 332, connecting to a parking lot to the east and south of the proposed building. Parcel 4 on the right in this image is a rectangular shape located at the eastern end of the subject property, south of Maryland 214 and east of Yolanda Avenue. 1 two-way driveway access point is provided in the southwest corner from Yolanda Avenue, connecting to the parking lot, which is to the south of the proposed building. Next slide, please. Building 1 on proposed parcel 4, again, the eastern one, will include 152 units comprised of 144 one-bedroom and 8 two-bedroom units. The main pedestrian entrance is in the middle of the northern facade, facing Old Central Avenue, and a southern internal courtyard provides green space. The applicant has requested 3 major departures from standards in section 274204. The first one is to not provide 100-foot separation between curb cuts on the same block face. The second is to not provide a minimum 20-foot wide sidewalk zone area, which includes the street tree planting area. And the third is to not provide a pedestrian entrance for every 150 feet of street-facing facade. This is discussed on pages 27 through 32 of the staff report, and staff recommends approval of these major departure requests due to the character of the development and the surrounding land uses and unusual aspects relative to the zoning and development of the property. Next slide, please. Building 2 on proposed parcel 1, again the western property, will include 141 units comprised of 134 one-bedroom and 7 two-bedroom units. The main pedestrian entrance is in the northeast corner, the upper right corner, facing Maryland 332, and a southern internal courtyard again provides green space. Next slide, please. The applicant has requested a variance to section 274204E3 to allow for a 13-foot reduction to the minimum build-to line for a portion of the frontage of Building 2 along Old Central Avenue. In the LTOC zone, the build-to line is required to be a minimum of 15 feet and a maximum of 27 feet. The right-of-way along Building 2's frontage on Maryland 332 is a variable width. It is a proposed 80 feet wide in the eastern portion and an existing 100 feet wide in the western portion of the frontage. This can be seen more clearly in the lower right image, which shows the proposed area of dedication in yellow and the extra area of existing right-of-way in green on the western portion of the frontage. The applicant has indicated that they intend to seek a vacation of the excess right-of-way from Maryland State Highway Administration, which would then render the project in compliance with the build-to line requirement. However, that solution is not guaranteed and could take several months to process and is subject to SHA approval. Due to this and other reasons discussed on pages 32 through 36 of the staff report, staff recommends approval of the variance request from the build-to line requirement. Next slide, please. The submitted landscape plan demonstrates conformance to all applicable sections of the landscape manual, except for sections 4.3, 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8 for portions of the proposed development, for which the applicant requested alternative compliance ACL-2024-002. The staff recommends approval of the alternative compliance request as discussed on pages 36 through 37 of the staff report. Next slide, please. The applicant submitted a Type 2 tree conservation plan in conformance with the Woodland and Wildlife Habitat Conservation Ordinance. Staff recommends approval of this with conditions included in the staff report. Next slide, please. The Building 1 elevations shown here, again, is of a 4-story, 46-foot high, flat roof building. Each building will be constructed of cementitious siding and stone veneer in multiple shades of white, black, and gray. Building 1 is differentiated by also including a vertical brown cementitious siding under some of the windows. The front elevation that faces Old Central Avenue to the north, which is the bottom image here, has a mixture of window types and a metal canopy over the main entrance door. There are a couple conditions in the staff's recommendation that would require modifications to the architecture, such as increasing the windows size on the street-facing ground level facades and providing some sloped roof features in conformance with neighborhood compatibility regulations. Next slide, please. Building 1 includes multiple pedestrian entrances facing the internal courtyard, and the same materials, fenestration, and pattern are included on all building facades, including those facing the courtyard. Both buildings include internal trash rooms accessed from the rear elevation. Next slide, please. Building 2, shown here, again is constructed of cementitious siding and stone veneer in multiple shades of white, black, and gray, but is differentiated by also including a dark gray cementitious siding under some of the windows. The front elevation that faces Old Central Avenue to the north, which is the bottom left image here, has a mixture of window types and a metal canopy over the main entrance door. Next slide, please. Building 2 includes pedestrian entrances facing the eastern parking lot and to the internal courtyard, and again has an internal trash room that is accessed from the rear elevation. Next slide, please. As shown in the additional backup, Dr. Douglas Edwards submitted documents in opposition to this application, and he indicated that the application violates CB 12/2003, which inserted language into the prior zoning ordinance requiring applicants to send informational mailings to civic associations, municipalities, adjoining property owners, and prior parties of record before filing applications. He also requested the applicant be required to meet with a coalition of civic associations, and in another document, he mentioned the subject property was agreed to be developed to house low, moderate, and medium income individuals and families. Staff reviewed the record and noted that while CB 12/2003 does not specifically apply to this application as it is proceeding under the current zoning ordinance and not the prior, the applicant did do informational mailings in conformance with the current zoning ordinance to the list of registered civic associations, municipalities, and adjoining property owners and prior parties of record, which included Dr. Edwards too. Staff cannot speak about specific meetings or discussions between the applicant and the civic associations, but notes that the proposed use of apartment housing for the elderly is permitted in the zone, the LTOC zone, which this development is pursuant to. With that, the urban design section recommends the planning board adopt the findings in the staff report and approve DET 2023-011 for Addison Park, as well as the major departure MJD 2024-002, alternative compliance ACL 2024-002, type 2 tree conservation plan TCP 2-032-2024, and a variance to section 27-4204E3 with the conditions. Again, staff is in agreement with the applicant's exhibit relative to the revised condition 1S and related revised finding 3. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kozak. Commissioners, questions for staff? Seeing no questions, let's turn to the applicant, Mr. Horn.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. For the record, Arthur Horn with the law office of Shipley and Horn. Very pleased to be here this morning to represent the applicant in this case. Mr. Chairman, my introduction of the applicant's team this morning will probably take longer than my entire presentation, but I think it's important that I do introduce everybody who's here and who's worked so hard on this project today. We have with us, and again, with reference, and I don't know, there's no need to swear them in if it comes to a point, Mr. Chairman, where you want to swear them in, then that would be fine. But I think we're going to go with the presentation, hopefully without having to call any of them as a witness or anything. But the applicant's team from the Prince George's County Redevelopment Authority has with it the acting executive director of the Redevelopment Authority, whose main title is Assistant Deputy Chief Administrative Officer of the Economic Development Team at the Office of County Executive, and that's Mr. Jim Chandler. Also from the Redevelopment Authority of Mr. Jerry Conahia, who's the Assistant Project Manager, as well as Miss Ashley Green, who's the Real Estate Developer Project Manager. From the developers team from the office of Colbert, Johnson, and Romney, there's the principal owner and the face of the developer, Mr. Harold Johnson. Also from his offices are Mr. Joel Cruz, the site development construction manager, as well as Mr. Bernard Baker, vice president of construction management. The other developers of this team are from Atlantic and Pacific out of Miami, and we have with us today Mr. Fernando Airmon, who's the Senior Vice President of Development, Mr. Greg Griffith, Senior Vice President of Development, Mr. Scott Kriebel, Senior Vice President, and the face of the organization from this project, Mr. Brian Jaffe, who's the Development Manager. Though not officially the applicant in this case, the Mission of Love team played a very key role in the process in the application. They are represented by letter and by presence with Miss Adenia Bradley, who is the executive director of the Mission of Love, and Mr. Gary Michael, who is the board of directors president of the Mission of Love. The civil engineering team we have with us is from SOTES on the project has been Mr. Ken Dunn, Mr. Tim Davis, and Mr. David Bickle. The architect for the site is from the Lazard Group Design, and it's Mr. Maurice Mead. The landscape architect is from Parker Rodriguez, and that's Mr. Dan Averett. Transportation is from Linhart Transportation Consultant, Mr. Michael Linhart, and the senior land planner from Shipley and Horn, Mr. Andrew Shelley. That was a mouthful, Mr. Chairman, but it's important to point out how many people were involved to try to bring this project to fruition. This is a Metro Transit-oriented project in the Blue Line Corridor, and I believe to be the first to proceed under the new ordinance. I think one thing everyone learned from this initial application, both with the preliminary plan prior and now with the detailed site plan, there's definitely a need for another omnibus bill to be instituted, perhaps by Parker Planning and approved by the council. Because we discovered there are a few statutory provisions that are practically inconsistent with each other and inconsistent with trying to develop the urban high density at metro sites and infills that is the subject of cases like this. These discoveries made proceeding under the new ordinance a little bit difficult, but quite interesting. Nevertheless, if I could use a musical analysis for just a second, Park and Planning's band leader and unsung hero is the veteran conductor and maestro, Miss Jill Kosak, who with her usual quiet but effective leadership style, directed both the applicant and staff, where we all originally were singing from different music sheets. She directed all of us on the applicant's team to sing that we're singing off key towards the right tune. So we're now here today to sing harmoniously, as we used to say in church, from the same hymnal. So Ms. Kosak has helped from her musical talent team primarily from Mr. James Hunt, Ms. Sherry Connor, and Ms. Ho John Garland, all of whom have spent many a day on the phone and social media meeting with the applicants team individually and collectively, making sure we were all singing the right notes. And we certainly want to thank each and every one of them for all the time they spent on this case. As I said, because it's under the new ordinance and it really took a lot of time, and they all will tell you they received a lot of calls from a lot of those listed the people we listed earlier, and they worked with them very, very closely. As we put together our choir practice continued all the way through yesterday, as the applicant decided that we were still slightly off key, so we had to come and sing an octave lower, and we are going to amend our exhibit number 1, which we have submitted here previously. Just like to take a quick second to thank all the individuals who submitted letters in support of the application. These individuals, as well as the applicants' teams and supporters, were all very excited to bring affordable senior housing into this area. These units will be a great opportunity for the seniors in the general area to age in place in the community, which continues to be the focus of a revitalization through both the Blue Line corridor plans and other efforts for revitalization. The applicant did note Reverend Douglas Edwards' letter of opposition, and again, he's here today. The development team, which included the Mission of Love, has stated within their letters and the concerns that the original vision that was sought in the new school building for the Mission of Love is still currently being processed. Collectively, the applicants team will continue to work with the Mission of Love, the town of Capitol Heights, the community, including the Central Coalition, as the development occurred in this area proceeds. Therefore, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the applicants team is pleased to ask the planning board to approve this application and adopt staff's report with amended applicants exhibit 1, whereas now with applicants exhibit 1, we're only asking for a slight amendment to condition 1S and related facts associated with that, making the conditions subject to the operating agreement. And as Ms. Kosak said, we are withdrawing our request to amend or have a condition that 1W or W1 withdrawn. After said all that, we have a full team here that can provide any additional information that may be requested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon, Commissioners, I need to beg your indulgence, but I need to take a brief recess. Let's take a, do we need more than 5 minutes? Anybody need a little bit more time than that? 10 minutes, no. 5 minutes, okay? All right, so we'll take a 5-minute recess. Let's do this, it's 11:53. We'll start up again right at noon.
Okay.
Applicant before we go to our speakers list.
I do, Mr. Chairman, and it's clarifying in nature. Mr. Horn, with regards to applicant exhibit number 1, I just want to make sure I'm clear on the amendments. So applicant exhibit number 1 will now include revised finding number 3 only, not revision to finding 5, correct?
It would be number 3 and 1S. Let me just make sure my number is correct.
Right. So because it as originally presented, it included revisions to 2 findings.
Yes, and the findings with reference to the W1 we're striking.
Okay, got it. So it's only finding 3 and conditions 1S.
Correct.
Thank you very much. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
No, I have none, but thank you, Commissioner Washington, for that clarification.
Indeed, thank you. All right, so I see 2 people signed up to speak. Ms. Queen, are you intending to speak on this item as well?
I'm sorry, I'm here. Yes, I'm going to speak. I'm in the background, so I'm not showing my picture because I'm trying to take care of my 1-year-old who's everywhere, you guys.
No worries. So we have Ms. Queen and we have Mr. Edwards, or Dr. Edwards. I'm sorry, Dr. Edwards. Is there anyone else who I'm missing who is intending to speak on this item? Okay, so let's start with Dr. Edwards, and then we'll hear from Ms. Queen. I'll need to swear you in. If you could raise your right hand. Let me ask both of you to do that, Ms. Queen as well as Reverend Edwards, if you could raise your right hand. Dr. Edwards? Can you hear me?
I'm raising my right hand, but it didn't let me put my camera on anyway, but I am raising my right
No,
hand.
you're fine, but I think Reverend Edwards can't hear me. Doc, can you hear me? No. Somebody have his number who can call him, please, and let him know that we need him to get sworn in and that he'll be speaking. Yeah, Reverend Edwards, Doug Edwards. So, Ms. Queen, let's start with you while we get Reverend Edwards to be able to hear us. And Ms. Queen, if you could, actually, I got to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I had Doug on the phone raising his right hand at the same time. Yes, I hear you. Yes, we do.
All right, so you're both, consider yourselves both under oath. Reverend Edwards, we can't hear you.
That's what he's saying. He said he can't talk. He's not sure why he can't speak. But he said he's not hearing. I guess you guys can see him, but he's not hearing anything.
I can't hear anything. I haven't been hearing anything all morning, and I explained that. In all of the blocks, I haven't heard any of the testimony. I haven't heard anything, and I'm just sitting here waiting.
I don't know what the technology issue is. We actually can hear you now, Dr. Edwards.
But you're hearing through my phone. You are hearing them from my cell phone. Yes.
Right, which, as crazy as that is, it's working, and I say we run with it.
Okay. Okay.
So Dr. Edwards, if you are able to go first, you are under oath.
Okay. Doug, I'll let you go first. I'm gonna let you talk through the phone. Go ahead, Doug. He wants you to give your testimony.
Okay, can you hear me now through Belinda's phone?
Yes.
Can they hear me?
Yes, they can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Douglas Edwards. Of course, I'm sure that most of you know me. There would be no need for the opposition that has been stated in my written testimony had the proper procedures in accordance with CB 12-2003 been followed. However, that's where the problem starts, or at least that's the second part of the problem. As founder of the Mission of Love and CEO and president for more than 30 years, it took me 3 county executives, 2 school board chairs, and a lot of help in order to have the Linden Hill School and the adjacent property was put to the county so the county could let us have it. And that's how we acquired the property. The problem is, at the time that I made requests for the property, the school was going to be used for housing and for training purposes and things of that nature. the vacant property was going to be used for what we call at that time progressive housing. It was going to be for people who were just started to work, for those that were homeless and those that were on the verge of becoming homeless because they could not afford the rent, as it's stated in shown in the DMV. And one of the things that have always bothered me and the members of the Mission of Love was not enough affordable housing, and have never been able to get anyone to tell us the definition of affordable. Now, you go back to when Prince George's County was claimed to be, had more affluent African Americans and all of this. If they use that as a means of saying affordable, then that's fine. But think about all of the people, as my godson, the late Wayne Curry, used to say, I am happy that you continually remind us that there are poor people also living in Prince George's County. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that we fought for, we pushed for, and we pulled for, and we finally got the school and the property. And then to find out, because the developer never ever met with the neighbors and the Coalition of Cities Associations in order to hear what we had to say concerning the development of. The first time we saw anything was when the property was already posted. And CB12 told them you're supposed to meet with the affected communities before you go to the planning board with these proposals. That never happened. So that's why we are in the predicament that we're in right now, is because we were totally ignored until we saw it. I saw it in writing in November with the first outing. And that's why we are opposed to it. Come back to the table. Let's talk about this, because we want to make sure that people who are working for McDonald's or at a gas station or Popeyes or wherever, that they are able to move into property such as this. And that's what, for over 30 years, the Mission of Love have always pushed for, pulled for, is to bring people up, not push them further down. So that's why we're here today, and I believe I probably did a better job in putting it down on paper when I sent my written testimony than I can today, because I'm just hurt. I'm in a lot of pain because of them moving forward with the project without meeting with us and hearing about what it is that we propose from the outset. So that's what I wanted to say, and I'm willing to take any questions that you have.
Okay, and they did read some of your testimony, though. You didn't hear they did say some of your testimony. I did hear.
We did. We heard your testimony, and we've had the written testimony as well. So, Reverend Edwards, thank you very much. Ms. Queen, you want to go?
Yeah, let me try this. Okay.
You want the little one to go instead? Would that be helpful?
Oh, trust me, he's gonna go. He's so busy, you guys. This grandbaby, I'll tell you, interesting at 62. But okay, so good evening, good afternoon, really still good morning. Good afternoon, good morning, sir, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, and all the planning board members. I'm the president of Central Coalition of Prince George's County. I'm just a little disappointed, especially Mr. Hornsby. Okay, sit down. It's because when I'm Doug, I'm gonna have to hang up on you because you got echo. Because you're aware of the coalition, you actually didn't come out at all and reached out. I think that's what I like about GS Proctor. He makes sure that we know about every project. We represent over 50 organizations, from civic associations to nonprofits to regular people, from the 202 Coalition to other organizations we represent. And no one came out to our community to speak on this project. It wasn't until the president, the director, who put it on, actually sent an email that I was able to see, as Doug was saying, like what was going on with the coalition. I mean, what was going on down at the Mission Love, and I asked her about it, and it shouldn't be, because I live right in Wilburn, right by Addison Road Subway, and I hear you guys saying that people are getting mailers. I didn't get a mailer, and I'm on your list to be mailed, and I don't recollect receiving anything. So you guys know where the way the mail is. Sometimes people may not really get these things, and as a planning board, you guys need to look at that. We need to make sure. I believe that was one of the reasons Doug stressed that, and I hear you guys when you saying it, that was in the past, is not part of the new, but that was one of the reasons why they had to come to the community, because it is not guaranteed. It is not guaranteed that the community is really getting these reports, and we need to make sure that it is out at civic associations like the coalition, so presidents can go back to communities and talk about events and stuff like that. I also want to add, within my 5 minutes, your first speaker said something very profoundly this morning. He asked, when will something be done, which is true, and that's a good question for what the issue that they're having out there on 210. And it's almost like that things were put in place, just like no longer what Doug called the Freddie Doctor. It was put in place because you guys don't want anything to be done. It's nothing planning on being done. They're planning on having you guys to keep coming back, which is, it's so not fair to community residents. One of you guys really got to stand up and make a change. And so I just want to add that as I get back to this. Another thing, as I bring back to the Capitol Heights area, we already have St. Paul's. We already have Compton at Oakcrest. We already have Gateway Village. These are senior housing. This is what Doug is upset. So I was on the Board of Education. When I was on the Board of Education, I fought real hard to get Linden Hill turned over. This is one of the things I pushed Dr. Golston to turn that school back over to the county, so the county could turn it back over to the Mission of Love, because Doug kept requesting it. Got that done along with Fairmont Heights High School. So very proud of getting that done. But it was so it could be used. One of the things he kept saying is so it can be used for housing for low to no income people who really need it, and even if they had a little income to survive. As I look in the area I live at, and I am not, in the Capitol Heights area, I look at me being retired since 2008 and making under $50,000 with my retirement. I am running into people who have families who are making less than that. Families who are trying to take care of kids. My girlfriend is 62, has 2 kids that she's trying to take care of that's in high school, and her income is less than that. Having a problem. She had to get someone else to sign for her to get an apartment, you guys. This is ridiculous. She can't get a senior living home because she has 2 teenagers that she's raising. We got to start. This is what Doug was trying to say. I get it. Senior houses, but seniors have places to go. But we got to find affordable houses for all. For seniors who have kids, who's raising their grandkids, who's raising other kids, for them to be able to go in programs like this. For housing for kids who are starting, for people, whether they're working at McDonald's or Starbucks or Target or wherever, where they're making $30,000 to $40,000, where they have affordable houses. We don't have anything like that. I'm gonna be honest. We have what we call the project houses that we have, and then we have some of Millwood, Townwood, some of the old places that we do have, which is Marlboro Townies and Millwood, which are county government-owned programs. To be honest, some of them are, but it's full. No one can get in it. So when we bring something new, we need to bring something to the table that's needed. And bringing something to the table that's needed will be bringing something where everybody in Prince George's County, from a person who's just getting out of high school or just getting out of college, 21, looking for something, looking for a portable place, to a grandparent who is raising their grandkids, as I said earlier, who's looking for a place to stay. It has to be for all. We have enough senior houses. We have enough in Capitol Heights area. I get it, you guys want to take care of seniors, but we really have enough. And I'm dealing with now, listening to the seniors in these senior housing places talking about the roaches and the pests and whatnot being taken care of. Let's fix the problems we have with the ones we already have before we talk about building new ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Queen. I appreciate it. And thank you for your leadership as always. And thank you for helping with the technology with Reverend Edwards as well. Appreciate that. I don't see anyone else who signed up to speak on this matter. Commissioners, any questions for the folks in the community who spoke? If not, Mr. Horn, I'm going to turn back to you for any rebuttal and close. In your rebuttal, if you could please reiterate the community outreach process, the pre-application hearing process, just to make sure we have that for the record.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me just say, obviously I know both Dr. Edwards and Ms. Queen very, very well. I'm very familiar with the Central Coalition. I take the clients out there all the time. We talked about it before, we're under the new ordinance, and the new ordinance requires, even before the application is filed, that adjacent, adjoining, and all registered associations uh, receive a notice and also have a meeting. These applicants did it. I have to say I was not part of the applications team at the time. The meeting was held by the developers, and the requirements include minutes from the meetings and providing information. We've seen it. It's in the backup. There were 23 people who attended a meeting in this area regarding this project. The project has changed in the sense that in addition to the senior housing, that they were going to be townhouses, but because of that meeting, when there was concern, as I understand it, and I'm reading it again, I'm not saying it from firsthand knowledge, they withdrew the concept of putting townhouses down and focused in on the senior housing. I have to say personally that I have knowledge about all this because it was actually, I was the attorney who arranged for the Mission of Love to be located at the school. As Dr. Edwards really is aware, the Mission of Love and its uses was not permitted in that zone where the school is located. So we provided for a text amendment that was challenged by the community that went all the way up to the Maryland Supreme Court. And so the language from the text amendment for the Mission of Love and the uses did not include any housing. It included the uses that when Dr. Edwards' letter, he wants to see, which the Mission of Love and its leadership still is processing. So I want to just assure him, from what I can see from his letter and from what I hear from the Mission of Love individuals itself, they're working things out for him. And as a matter of fact, the Redevelopment Authority has purchased the old building from them and allows the Mission of Love to operate out of there as well at this point. So there is a concerted effort on all parts for people to work together to try to get these things accomplished. And I want to say to Ms. Queen, again, with reference to the type of uses and development stuff, the Redevelopment Authority is open to it. The Mission of Love is open to it. But this senior housing for that site and their use was something that was contemplated by all the parties that I've seen since I've been there. Because of the legislation and the language and stuff, this is something that was discussed for a while. And I don't know where the communication fell in this, but I do know that there was certainly no intention to cut out the Central Coalition, certainly no intention to go around the desires of the Mission of Love. But the entire process has been moving forward to try to achieve the senior housing and the other uses, all of which, what Dr. Edwards stated, are still on the table and still being processed by the Mission of Love as we speak. And I think the letter, I don't want to seem like I'm testifying, Mr. Chairman, but the letter from the Mission of Love so states that's in the record. So again, I, just would say with reference to this project that the developers are utilizing, hope to utilize the tax credits from Maryland, which would mean that the occupants would be individuals with lower income to be able to utilize this housing. I don't know what the numbers would be, but that's the intention of this development, and it is the intention to try to move forward with affordable senior housing in that, which is what the plan that the mission of love, the redevelopment authority, and everybody had in mind. So I do appreciate and respect totally Ms. Queen, Dr. Edwards, and the community, but with reference to the applicant in this case, they move forward to try to make sure that this can be accomplished.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. And I do see, Dr. Edwards, I do see your hand up. The public hearing piece of this is passed. So where we're at in the process is for the applicant to have the final word, the rebuttal and the close. And so I want to honor that process. Mr. Horn, anything else you want to add?
No, I just again, I'm sorry. This should be a joyous thing, and I as Dr. Edwards said, sorry if the communication was the problem, because I do think and I know that everybody on this meeting here wants the same thing in this area, and all the developers, they want the same thing, and so maybe, like you said, with a little better communication amongst the parties, we can make sure that everything moves smoothly without any further misunderstandings.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, so with that, I'm going to close this public hearing. Commissioners, any thoughts, reactions, any deliberation, or if not, what is your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff in addition to the revised finding 3 as outlined in applicant exhibit number 1, and approve DET-2023-011, MJD-2024-002, ACL-2024-002, TCP2-032-2024, and variance to section 27-4204E3 to include the conditions as outlined in staff's report, and condition 1S as modified by applicant exhibit 1.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Under discussion, let me just say, Mr. Horn, I can only imagine, given the history here and your involvement in the history, that you will continue to work with the applicant and the team to make sure that you're communicating with Dr. Edwards and Ms. Queen as we move forward on this process.
Absolutely.
Thank you. If there's any other questions or comments under discussion, if not, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Bailey.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 5-0. I want to thank everybody for your participation on this and your passion and your advocacy and all the work that goes into these very, very complex projects. So thanks to everybody. Ms. Carter.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Before us.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
No further business before us, Ms. Carter?
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, then without objection, colleagues, we are adjourned. Happy holidays to everybody. And we will see you in this format in the new year.
Happy holidays, all. Have a good one.
Thank you guys for your service.
Happy holidays.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.